The restaurant hummed with the kind of low, confident energy only a Friday night can bring. Soft jazz leaking from hidden speakers, candles flickering in glass votives, the clink of cutlery, laughter folding into the warm, dim air. The dining room was tasteful without being ostentatious. Polished wood, white linens, a few framed black and white photographs on the walls. People ate, flirted, celebrated. The city spun on outside the windows, a smear of headlights and neon. She moved through the tables with practiced ease, balancing a tray like a seasoned performer. Her uniform was simple: crisp blouse, apron tied neat, hair pulled back, but with a few surrendering strands that caught the light. There was an economy to the way she worked. No wasted motion, no theatrical flourish. Her name tag read a common name. Nothing remarkable, but there was something about her eyes that suggested she paid attention to details others missed. He arrived like a weather shift. A man in a tailored coat, a presence that pressed the room into a new alignment. Everyone glanced, not out of curiosity as much as instinct. Powerful people announced themselves that way. He had the watch that people stared at discreetly, a laugh that seemed to buy space, the posture of someone who'd grown used to being obeyed. He sat at the corner table by the window, alone, and the waiter nearby lowered his voice as he accepted the reservation card. When she approached, when she set the water and the menu down, there was a small ripple of acknowledgement from him, the kind that could mean anything from amused approval to a rehearsed courtesy. He glanced at the menu as if it were an unfamiliar script, and then, when she came back for the order, he spoke in Italian. His accent was clean, clipped, the language rolling out like silk. Bruschetta, per iniziere, he said. E del vino rosso, Illinois più caro che avete. She blinked, surprised for only the length of a breath. There were languages she understood passably: Spanish from the local street vendors, a bit of French from an ex, enough to muddle through. But Italian was different. It was a language of melody and accusation. For a second, she considered reaching for a notepad and scribbling, then remembered there wasn't room on the tablet for requests in phrases she might not translate cleanly. Mi scusi, signore, she replied in English, as she always did, upbeat, neutral. Do you want the bruschetta and a bottle of the house red? He lowered his menu and smiled in a way that was the kind of small weapon some people used without thinking. No, he said in English now, with the half sneer that makes clarity feel like charity. I asked in Italian because I assumed you would understand, given your accent. It landed in the space between them like a deliberate stone. The table nearest them froze a fraction of a second. It wasn't just the words, it was the implication. She was used to the classificatory glances, a polite assumption about where someone came from, what they could do. But this was a different animal. Thinly veiled contempt wrapped in the ceremonial civility of a man who had never been told no. She felt something cool and steady settle behind her ribs. There would be many ways to respond. She could smile, apologize, fold. She could rehearse the script she'd been taught in service school, defuse, redirect, make it about the food. Instead, she let the moment pass across her face and returned it with something sharper, precise. No problem, she said in flawless Italian, every syllable sculpted, the rhythm of the phrase sliding into place as if it had been living inside her all along. Bruschetta per cominciare, una bottiglia del vostro vino più selto. Avete una selezione di Barolo oggi. The man's smile fragmented, just a hairline crack at the corner. The waiter at the next table glanced up, his fork frozen midair. Conversations dimmed, like the city itself holding its breath. The man set down his wine list with exaggerated care, as if to smooth the moment over. Ah, he said in English, recovering. My mistake. I assumed you were from around here. She put her pen to her pad with the same calm she used to decant sauces. Sono cresciuta in una famiglia che parla italiano, she said, gentle but real. I grew up Italian and American. I can help with the wine list if you'd like. He laughed then, a short, disarmingly practiced sound. How charming, he said in Italian now, switching back like someone flicking a switch. You serve well, you speak well. You must be some success story. What is your job outside of waiting tables? Modeling? Studying law. She wrote the order down without flinching. When she said the word for law, she pronounced it as if she were pronouncing a stone. No, I study translation at night. I work full-time. I have 2 jobs, actually. You study translation? He scoffed, eyebrows raised. So you're learning how to interpret for other people, helping them into their better lives? The sentence was bait and barbed wire. Her mouth tasted like iron. The taste of noticing when someone thinks themselves entitled to a person's future. I interpret, she said, still in Italian. And sometimes I interpret people's intentions as well. He snapped his fingers lightly, an impatient punctuation. What are you trying to say? She smiled, a small, dangerous smile that didn't dim. That assuming someone based on appearance won't improve your palate or your character, she said in English. It might make your mouth taste very small. The words landed with exactly the gravity she intended. For a moment, all the room watched the exchange as if it had been a play written just for them. A few diners grinned. Some looked away, embarrassed for him. He felt it, the social tug of being called out in public. Some people would have doubled down, blustered, thrown money. But there are richer variations of cruelty. He folded his napkin with slow composure and, as if unhappy with the previous tenor, shifted the conversation into condescension that wore silk. How very modern of you, he said in Italian, the words dipped in irony. A waitress who is also an intellectual. Tell me, after you finish your studies, will you translate for me? My company expands into Rome. I need someone who can handle the subtleties of contracts and the peccadillos of aristocracy. Someone with a pleasant face and a willingness to look small. He meant it as an insult. He meant it to land like a collar. It felt like the kind of jab old money uses to remind a person of their place. She felt the entire floor tilt, the quiet weight of other people's expectations. She could have laughed. She could have bowed her head and retreated into the protective practicality of her apron. But she had learned something over the years. She had learned that precision can be a weapon shielded by civility. She had practiced how to cut without making a spectacle. You speak of looking small, like it's a crime, she said in Italian, voice low enough that only he and the nearest table heard. You mistake humility for timidness. I look where I need to. I learn where I must. I don't confuse the size of my clothes with the size of my mind. The room rippled. A woman at the corner table whispered, "Good for her." A man who'd been scrolling on his phone brought it down and stared, suddenly invested. The billionaire lifted a hand, half in surrender, half in lecture. You speak very well. But don't you think your time could be better spent? You know, networking. Men like me can open doors. He said the old thing, money is access, as benevolence. It was an old pitch, alpha male condescension, wolf in a cashmere coat. She set down the wine and the bruschetta with steady, measured hands. The bruschetta was simple, charred bread, tomato, basil, the kind of plate that didn't need opulence to be honest. Access is not given by men like you, she said, sliding into English for clarity. It's made by people who do the work you pay others to pretend to value. He gave a small, dismissive bark. And is this the kind of work you're doing? Serving food? Speaking pretty? It's a good story. Humble beginnings, upward climb. Films eat that up. She wiped a condensation bead from a glass with the practiced speed of someone who had to find crumbs of dignity among crumbs. You think humble is entertainment. That's the trick, isn't it? You want to watch Uplift on your screen while you walk past the people who make the world on your days off. People at nearby tables leaned forward, a collective intake of breath like a city inhaling. The billionaire's smile tightened, one of those small, brittle things that break into finer fractures when pressure is applied. He wanted to end it. He wanted to put his wallet on the table and wink, as if money could seal the moment. Instead, he tried the old veneer of humor. You have spunk, he said. If I were your employer, I'd say you have. What is it, chutzpah? Guts. Very American. Don't you want to stop waiting tables and take a job that really pays you what you're worth? She laughed, soft, a sound that was almost pure amusement. I have a job that pays me for now, she said, and a night course that pays me for later. Would you like to be my reference when I apply for that job with your Rome branch? It was a small, precise deflation. He opened his mouth, then closed it. He had prepared lines, an arsenal of smirks, the exact volume to deliver generosity. None of it fit the shape of what she had just offered. It forced him into a place of decision. Double down on contempt and look petty, or accept the harmlessness of a woman's ambition and ride out the remainder of the evening in a way that preserved his dignity. I'll consider it, he said finally, in a voice that contained no promises. He signaled for the wine. The waiter obliged, and then, As if retrieving an old instinct, the billionaire leaned forward. "You speak Italian like a native," he said in Italian. "You must be from somewhere good. Where are your parents from? The accent, are you Sicilian? Calabrese? Naples? You have family in the old country." She could have lied. People often assumed origins based on sound and smile. But she was done being small to make someone else feel large. "My parents are from Puglia," she said. "They moved here when my father found seasonal work. He fixed shoes. My mother cleaned houses. I was the first in my family to go to university." A small murmur moved through the room. None of them were strangers to such stories, but there was a hum of respect, like a chord being struck. The billionaire's face tightened in that way that happens when a person suddenly realizes they have been reduced to a stereotype by their own assumptions. "How romantic," he said with a forced lightness, like the thing was an ornament he could put away. "From Puglia to America. A movie, really." "It's not a movie," she said. "It's a life. And the fact that you see it as entertainment tells me more about you than about us." There was a table of 3 women near the back who launched into conversation about how bold she was. The man at the corner table pushed back from his chair, a soft move like someone who had been reminded he was not the center of every room. He signaled for the bill. When she brought it, he signed with a practiced flourish and left a sum that was large but underlined with ostentation. The gesture mattered more than the math. Yet he included a note, written in a thick, expensive hand. She saw it as she walked past. "Nice accent. Call me. Could be good for you." She read it and smiled. Not a victory smile, but the clear, feral grin of someone who sees an opportunity and a challenge wrapped in one. She folded the paper carefully and slipped it into her apron pocket. Later, after the restaurant emptied and the cleaning crew hummed in the back like a tide of cotton and soap, she took her break outside under the streetlight. The night was sharp and the air smelled of rain. She sat on the stoop for a moment and watched the city, the way lights opened and closed like people blinking. Her phone vibrated, an unknown number. She opened it, expecting spam. Instead, there was a text. "It was refreshing to meet you. I hope you'll consider that opportunity. M." She could have deleted it. She could have turned down the possibility on principle. She could also have recognized that a door being opened by someone you've called out comes with an ethical calculus. She had pulled the rug out from under him in public. He had offered the rug as a peace offering. Both actions contained truth. She thought of her father, tying leather with a deft thumb, head bent like a man who'd learned to shape what life handed him. She thought of her mother, who'd cleaned other people's kitchens with the economy of someone who understood the dignity of labor. She texted back in Italian. "Thanks for the offer. I work hard. I expect you to do the same." The reply came nearly immediately. "That's all I ask." She smiled and stood, the city's night spinning around her. Power had many faces. Some of them wore velvet smiles and expensive cologne. Some of them learned, slowly, that the world was larger than their assumptions. She could not know if he would be different because of the exchange. She could not know whether the job would be real or whether it would come with strings that tasted of compromise. What she knew was that she had not sold herself for a compliment, nor had she refused to recognize a potential chance. Back inside, the manager, a man who had watched the exchange with a guarded interest, clapped a hand on her shoulder. "You handled that well," he said. There was no smallness in his tone, only the recognition of someone who could carry the heat of attention without burning. She shrugged. "I speak Italian," she said, "and I'm tired of people assuming. If he wants to help, fine. If not, we keep doing our work." He nodded. Sometimes words change people's minds. Sometimes they change tables. She laughed, a sound like the clink of glasses. The night wound down, and the kitchen staff tallied the day. The register closed, the ovens cooled. Outside, the city kept moving, indifferent and insistent. Inside, a woman folded her apron and stepped into the rain with a small, resolute smile. In the following weeks, there would be emails, then a call, then an interview that felt more like a negotiation of values than a job. He asked about her life, about the times she had been underestimated, about the languages she could speak. She asked about ethics, about labor policies, about whether the company would truly value the people doing the work no one noticed. He answered clumsily at first, then with more care as the conversation stretched on. People change in different ways. Some change because the world presses in. Some because they are embarrassed into better behavior. Some because they see an idea that aligns with their own self-image and adapt. She kept her guard, but she also kept her eyes open. She refused to be grateful for crumbs. She accepted an opportunity because she wanted to test it, not because she needed to be saved. The day she accepted the role, small and measured, she took a moment and walked through the restaurant. She looked at the line in the reservation book, at the busboy stacking trays, at the woman in the kitchen laughing with the chef. She thought of her father, of the hands that had taught her to respect work of every size. When she started at the Rome office months later, the billionaire, an older, more tempered version of himself, was there, watching. He greeted her with a nod that contained an apology without the word. "You were right," he said quietly in Italian. It wasn't entertainment. She accepted the job on her terms. They negotiated fairness openly. She taught them to listen, to value the people who kept their businesses running. They taught her the art of powerful rooms and closed deals. Both of them learned to speak a language harder than Italian, the language of accountability. In the end, the thing the billionaire had intended as a small humiliation became something else, a lesson that had to be earned. She had given him one in return, a mirror. It didn't make him saintly. It didn't make her rich beyond her needs. It did, however, change a few habits. Small things. The company instituted better overtime pay, translation staff were moved from provisional gigs to salaried positions, and the office, once a place of polite condescension, grew quieter and truer. She still waited tables on weekends for the rhythm of it, for the faces and the stories, for the honest exchange between hands and food. And sometimes, when a rich man arrived and tried to measure the room with a glance, she would answer him in Italian, perfectly, and the way she said it would make him stop and reconsider whether he liked the sound of his assumptions.